Yeah, everything's a little different. So, are you still having pretty good crowds at your orchard? You're pleased with how people are still responding and getting in?
Yes, it has. We definitely had good business, and I will give our public a lot of credit for trying to maintain the COVID guidelines. Means social distancing, being outside really helps, but our crowds have been consistently steady, but not overwhelmingly large. And so we're really pleased with the moving of the fruit this year.
Good. And we will be on our website. We do have the feature where we highly are going to encourage them to come see you down in Belleville on, I forgot where, Turkey Farm Road, or it's a unique name.
Turkey Hill Lane.
Turkey Hill Lane. We'll encourage them to go visit you on Turkey Hill Lane, but also visit their own local orchard as part of the Illinois Specialty Growers. So we'll be talking about that as well. So with that, I am going to start recording. So we've got that. So let's see. How do I? All right. Chris, can you check and see if I'm recording? I can't. It's not pulling up on my thing here.
Yeah, Kevin, it says that you're recording.
Okay, cool. That's all I needed. So that's good. Good to know. With that, I've got 12:59. So Stephanie, if you want to go ahead and let folks in, you guys can let folks in. We'll get started here in just a couple of minutes. Folks,
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
Folks, as you come in, we would ask that you remain muted and keep your cameras turned off to minimize distractions and help it with the clarity of our video for video sharing. If you'd please start filling out the poll, we can go over that in just a couple of minutes. And we are pleased to have Tom Range from Braeutigam Orchards in Belleville, Illinois, joining us. And we'll get started in just a minute. Go ahead and look at the chat feature. We will utilize the chat feature as we have time for questions here in just a couple of minutes. All right, looks like we are getting folks in, and we are at 1 o'clock. Let's see, our poll questions, as you guys came in, we ask you to fill out a poll just to get an overall rough feature of your knowledge of apples. So folks, my name is Kevin Darty. I'm with the Illinois Agriculture in the Classroom program, and we are really excited to have Tom Range from Braeutigam Orchards in Belleville, Illinois, joining us today to take our apple orchard tour. So we're really excited to have part of our apple orchard tour, and we're going to go over the results of our poll, just so you're familiar with it. So the first question that we asked was, which apple is the Illinois state fruit? And the answer is the Gold Rush apple. The Gold Rush apple. Mr. Richardson's 4th grade class in Woodlawn Elementary initiated this legislation after learning Illinois was one of the few states that didn't recognize a state fruit. They worked the whole process. Teachers and students, if you want to know what that process is, please go and watch Schoolhouse Rock, how a bill became a law, and you can figure out how you could make a state vegetable or fruit as well. We do have a state vegetable too. So that's our first question, was the Gold Rush apple. Our second question was, true or false, the apples you're eating now were probably harvested last fall? Well, the answer is true, unless you've been to the orchard. If you've been to Braeutigam Orchard in the last week or so, those are fresh apples, but a number of apples that you were eating were harvested last fall. We only harvest apples in the fall in the Northern Hemisphere. Thanks to controlled atmosphere storage regulations, we're able to keep apples for a while. So you can enjoy fresh apples from now until next fall, thanks to those new controlled atmospheric storage conditions. But we really encourage you to go visit Braeutigam Orchard or your local orchard to make sure that you are getting the freshest apples available. And then finally, what year were apples brought to America? Well, the answer is B. Apples are not native to America, but early apple orchard produced few apples, and honeybees were shipped over later to help with pollination. Kind of a unique spin on this, because we had our pollinator visit just last week. So how pollinators work together with our apples. So with that, we're really excited. We're really excited to have Tom Range joining us today, and he is with Braeutigam Orchards in Belleville, Illinois. And we're going to get started first by taking this quick tour of his orchard. We're going to take a quick tour of his orchard. So folks, if you direct your attention to the screen, I will be sharing the video here. I would ask that you please keep your video off, as well as your microphones muted. So with that, I'm going to be sharing the orchard video here. Share this. I'm going to make it bigger. All right, oh, went the wrong way here. So I'm going to make this full screen, and we should begin with, here we go. And with this, folks, here's Tom Range from Braeutigam Orchards in Belleville, Illinois. Please join us for this quick tour.
Hello, my name is Tom Range, and you're at Braeutigam Orchards near Belleville, Illinois. This is a apple tree behind us that we had planted probably about 7 or 8 years ago. This is a variety called Gala. I just want to say to you, what happens here is that apples do not come about just spontaneously. There's a lot of preparation and long work to it here. This process started probably the day we decided we were going to plant an apple tree here. You maybe can't tell by the surroundings, but we're kind of upland here. We're got a higher elevation. This is it allows us to have good air drainage, and they can be grown from the north and the south in Illinois. And in the wintertime, we prune the trees, we get it opened up so it has plenty of space for the apples to develop and good air movement through there. Then in the springtime, we have to look for, fertilization. We have to make sure these trees have the right nutrients so that they'll grow properly. I don't want to get too complicated about it right now, but there's a lot more to be said about that. But then we have to get into the pest control issue, and we have insects, and we have bacterial diseases, and we have fungal diseases, and all those have to be controlled during the summer. But probably a process that a lot of people don't understand is that apples have to be thinned. When they bloom in the spring, they have a tremendous amount of bloom some years, and this was a year that they did, and the apples have to be spaced out so that you can get good size on them and good color. We raise a lot of apples here, and there's a reason we do it, because apples ripen, and on our farm, we have apples ripen in June, July, August, September, October. But when those apples come in, though, some of them are different varieties. The ones in June are called Lodi. It's a good cooking apple, great applesauce apple. Then in July, we have Jersey Mac, Pristine. We have one called Zestar. And they're really all could be used for cooking, but the Zestar becomes a
Sorry, folks, looks like
very good eating apple. Then in August, we have the Gala, which I just showed here earlier. And then we have another one coming up in about 2 weeks, Honeycrisp. Everybody raves about Honeycrisp. It's a good apple. And then we have another one called Supreme Golden. In September, we have Golden Delicious, Red Delicious, Jana Gold, Empire, all good eating apples and could be processed too. Now the October apples fall in a different kind of realm. In the October we have Fuji, Wine Sap, and we have one called Gold Rush, which I recently
Sorry, folks, it seems to be buffering.
found out is the state apple of Illinois. In addition to apples, we do raise peaches, and we raise a relative or a variety of peach called nectarine. But earlier in the season here, we have strawberries about the 1st of June, and then we have blueberries. We actually raise blackberries here at this farm, and we have several varieties of plums that we raise. These all complement each other as we go through the season from June through October. Pumpkins are an annual crop. We have to plant every year, and it's grown from seed. They produce 2 kinds of flowers. They have a male flower and they have a female flower. The female flower obviously produces what we call the pumpkin or the fruit, and the male flower's job is to help to pollinate them. And when you're out here seeing them at this time of day, you don't see a lot of flowers open, but if you're here early in the morning, it's A lot of yellow color out here. It's beautiful. This is a banana tree. Now, banana trees are not native to Illinois. They have to be started in a greenhouse during the wintertime. And during the summertime, we bring them out and plant them inside a container or tub just for ornamental value. We also experiment a little with growing pineapples too, but that's just for our fun and enjoyment. This is not a commercial crop. Now, the greenhouse in the background, we actually start our seeds in there for our watermelon, our cantaloupe, do all of our tomatoes, peppers, and eggplants. Again, the greenhouse is a very essential part of our operation because every spring it provides us a lot of our plants that we can set out in the field. This is our high tunnel. This structure here looks like a greenhouse, but it's not a greenhouse because it's technically has no heating source in there, and we have no ventilating source other than the side walls and the louvers, but we have no fans in here. Now, the purpose for this structure is for us to raise certain crops that are protected from rainfall. Rain can crack tomatoes, but when you raise them in here, if we keep the rain from coming down on them, but we have to irrigate them. So we have trickle irrigation lines on the floor down here, and we have weed barrier mats and that. But all these plants were started in our greenhouse down there, and we transplant them up here, and we raise them in here under a kind of protected culture. But the tomatoes are just taste the same as they would if they raised outside. This is not a hothouse tomato, it's a high tunnel tomato, and you can see the quality of them. There's very little cracking on these things, and there's a lot of smooth finishes to them, and we have to let them get good, and we let them good and ripe before we pick them. We don't try to pick them when they're green and ship them, because we can take them right here and sell them on our farm. Thank you for visiting Braeutigam Orchards today. We hope you enjoyed the tour as much as we enjoy giving tours. We like to show people what we're doing, and we hope that you can come back and visit us someday. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to stop this. Sorry about the delay there, folks. Sometimes we just have those technical difficulties, and I'm sure you're all familiar with those. With that, though, what we want to do is I'm going to stop sharing. And we do have Tom Range, who has joined us. And you can see Tom, he's joining us from his kitchen today. Tom is joining us from his kitchen. And one of the unique things, Tom, just over your shoulder there is a picture of an aerial view of your farm. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your farm?
Okay, Kevin, our farm is located in southwest Illinois, about 20 miles southeast of St. Louis, Missouri. And as I said in the video, our area is hilly. In fact, the road we live on is called Turkey Hill Lane. We're about 600 feet above sea level, which is about 150 feet higher than neighboring areas. This allows us to be a good site for growing fruit trees. Fruit trees like to have good air drainage and good moisture drainage in the soil. So no, we grow, our primary fruit crops are apples and peaches. We do grow, I say on the video, smaller amounts of different kinds of plums and cherries and nectarines and things of that type. We also are farmers in the sense that we grow grain. We have 100 acres of corn and soybeans this year, which are typical in Illinois. And I have a small herd of beef cattle, which we utilize some of our hilly ground to put cattle on for pasture. I hope that gives you an overview of the farm, but we do, I should say one thing, we do have a farm market here. We sell almost all of our produce here through our farm market. And so therefore it's kind of a direct to the consumer operation.
Right, and when people come and visit you, they're coming to Braeutigam Orchard, but your name's Tom Range. Can you help us out with how you're related to the Braeutigams?
Yes, I met a young lady several years ago by the name of Patricia Braeutigam, and her father was mother were in the orchard business. In fact, her grandparents and great-grandparents were too. So we actually went to grade school together, and I worked for her dad. And then when we got married, I told her, I said, I like the name Braeutigam. I knew a girl one time that was named Braeutigam, so therefore we're going to keep it Braeutigam Orchards. And that's where the name came from. It's from my wife, Patricia.
Very cool. So definitely a family-owned affair, and even your children are involved. Tell us a little bit about how your son comes back and helps, even though he's got another off-farm job.
Right. Our son, Kurt, is currently the agriculture and horticulture instructor at Southwest Illinois College. But he lives on the farm here. He only lives about 500 feet where I'm sitting right now. And he is involved in retail sales, and he also helps us with any of the farming jobs that need to be done. And it's primarily a weekend job, but he can help in the evenings when he's got time to do it too.
Right, and not only that, but then somebody that studies horticulture and agriculture, how about some of the ways that you keep up with new efforts in technology and new materials on your farm? You're certainly not farming the way, in many ways, you are farming the same way your in-laws and your grandparents-in-laws did, but in other ways, there are lots of new technological advances. What are some of those things that you've done that you've seen that have helped improve the farm with technology?
Well, right now we're on a Zoom video, but we also had just saw some videos that you, the Farm Bureau, helped create, or the Ag in the Classroom did. But, we have access to so much information now. When I want to I'm trying to study about a pest, or in this case, it could be a disease, it could be an insect. I can go on and Google or contact different sources, and primarily even universities like University of Illinois, Penn State, Ohio State, and find out what their researchers are doing there. And that has been a great aid to us. It's quick and more convenient. And right in my living room or kitchen, in this case here, I can access all the information not all, but a lot of information I need.
Yeah, that is above and beyond. And you mentioned the universities. That whole idea of the universities extending out into the community, the forerunner of our extension program. That was the goal with that. Now, another thing that you talked about was, we're gearing up for apple season, and later in the month, your pumpkins will be coming on, and people are thinking about fall and hooded sweatshirts and campfires and those kind of things. But apple orchards, your apple orchard and your fruit orchards, you're farming those all year long. You mentioned a little bit of that in the video, but can you walk us through what you need to do in order to get the apples prepared starting, I don't know, the first of the year when it's still winter? What kind of activities are you doing in the orchard in the winter, in the spring, and in the summer?
Well, one of the things we do, and it's a very important part of our operation, is that Illinois specialty growers have an annual meeting in January in Springfield, and it's very important to meet, people in the industry, and get university extension people to give their talks and stuff like that. I figure that's a big part of our operation. It's only a 3-day conference, but you need to go to that. Now, but outside of the orchard, the winter is a time for us to prune the trees. That's to, cut them back or shape them up so they can be better producers of fruit. And this is something you start in January. Our goal is to be through pruning apples by the end of February, but we also have to start working with peach trees in March. We prune those. We also start a fertilization program in March. Very important to get that fertilizer down early so it's there when the trees need it. Then we have to start pest control. Actually, in the 3rd week of March, just usually for our latitude, we're starting to look at trying to control already insects and diseases. We work into the springtime with the blackberries, and then we have our blueberries need to be fertilized, especially they have a special fertilization. And then usually by we kind of get into, we actually forgot about, we got to plant new trees. Every year, planting trees is a very big part of our operation. You cannot plant an orchard one time and expect to be in business forever. So some trees are going to live for longer than others, but we have, usually in April, we're planting trees. In this past year, we planted 200 peach trees at our operation. This year, we're going to plant about 200 apple trees. We try to make sure we put some trees out every year. But starting in May then, in May, we may have to do a process called thinning. And that's thinning apples and peaches. And I talked about that in a video about the sizing. You cannot get good sized fruit unless you thin them out. You hope that nature's done its part in giving you a good bloom. And those pollinators you started about last week have done a good job pollinating our apple blossoms and peach blossoms. And this year they did. And so anyway, so we have to thin them out. And some of it's done by hand, some of it's done chemically. Apples we can thin chemically, but peaches have to be thinned by hand. Very tedious work and very detailed work. We have to thin them out to about 6 to 9 inches apart. That's literally hand labor. And we have to hire local people to help us do that too. Not just ourselves. We have high school and college students who help us, and they've been great aid. Starting in June, we can start harvesting. We actually start harvesting, cherries in June. We have our blueberries in June. We have some of our strawberries. And then we have a summer apple about the end of June, and that's where we start with that. And then we keep ourselves busy all the way until October harvesting stuff, but we got to mow, we got to control insects, and storms come through and break trees down or stuff like that. We got to clean the breakage up. Unfortunately, there were some bad winds here in Illinois a couple weeks ago, but we get them to every year. And then we have time we get to the end of October, we're already starting on next year again. The orchard's got to be mowed for the winter for control of a certain type of a pine meadow vole. It's like it causes damage in the orchard. We have to make sure we get all the dead wood taken out, and we have to get the trees ready for the pruning process in January. So I hope that led you through the year, right?
It did. Oh my gosh, there's not a dull moment on your farm, that's for sure. As you were speaking of that, typically you would have farm tours. You would have people that would come out, and one of the things that you mentioned your farm is known for is not just the apples, but your apple donuts. You want to tell us a little bit about your apple cider donuts?
Yeah. Well, some years ago, we had heard that they were making donuts in other parts of the country, and they had made something called apple cider donuts. So we had an older home on the farm, and that we had it remodeled and brought up to St. Clair, our county, health regulations, and we turned it into our farm kitchen bakery, as we call it. And we have a mix for apple cider donuts, which we don't give away our recipe, but we have a certain recipe for it. And the apple cider is the primary liquid and the only liquid that makes in that donut. But also we have our donut mix itself. And so that donut, once it's fried, then we roll it in a cinnamon sugar coating, and then we package up, and it is a big item. I was making them this morning, in fact. I was one of our workers. I had to train a new worker on how to make the donuts properly so they come out the way we want them to and have the great flavor to it.
That sounds like my kind of job, teaching people how to make donuts. I'm impressed by that, Tom. We've got a question in the chat room here talking about apples and pollination. Do you have your own bees, or do you have enough hives and bees, or do you have to bring in bees to help with pollinating?
Well, Kevin, in our area, if you've seen that overhead video when the drone was taking pictures there, we have a lot of timber in our area. We're up on top of a hill, as you said. I used to have 3 beehives myself, but I have a neighbor who is a beekeeper, and he asked if he could take the beehives over, so I let him do it. It was one less thing we had to do, but we have bees in the area. But we not just have honeybees, we also have bumblebees, and some insects do pollination. It's kind of interesting in the springtime during the heavy bloom, you can actually walk out of the orchard, you can hear the hum. You can hear the insects humming. It's really a neat sound. And they're so busy concentrating on pollinating that you can let them land on you. You can touch them with your hand. They'll walk over you. And they're not going to sting you unless you put them between a rock and a hard place. They're going to go ahead and do their job and just keep on moving.
Interesting that you there's enough around, so that's really a testament to the ecosystem in your area, that the bees find it a place to flourish, not only with the orchard but also your other timber and other croplands that you have there. So
yes, it is, and I'm so glad, because you had a program about pollinators the other day. We do depend upon them, but I'm glad nature is providing them for us too.
Yeah, that's a great activity. Another thing that you talked about is you don't make your own cider on site, but you send the cider off. For students that aren't familiar with exactly what cider is, everybody thinks they understand apple juice, but there's a difference between apple juice and apple cider. Why don't you explain the difference and how you guys get your cider?
Okay, first of all, let me talk about the cider first. Cider is the actual juice from the apple. Now, no, we have some old-time cider presses on the farm that go 150 years old, and we know how the process works. So we currently take them to a different orchard, because they have what we call federally inspected plant that allows them to be able to be labeled properly for all the health and sanitary reasons. But when you squeeze them, you basically grind the apples up into by what they call a hammer mill process, and it makes them almost liquidy. And then you put them in a press where you squeeze the juice out of it. We can get about 3.5 gallons out of a bushel of apples, but that is straight juice. And our juice then is put through a ultraviolet pasteurization process, so to remove any harmful bacteria that might be in there and make it safer for people to drink. Cider years ago was never UV processed or pasteurized, but if you took good sanitation, make sure you kept your apples clean, it would make a nice cider. Now, what's apple juice though? Apple juice is kind of crazy how it does it. It's based on it is cider, but what they do is they concentrate it, and then they ship it. And a lot of our apple juice comes from foreign countries. It does. It comes from some of the European countries. When it gets to the United States, it's reconstituted by adding water to it. It's less expensive for them to ship it if it's in a concentrated farm, but when you get here, they add water to it. So in your apple juice, it always looks so clear because it's actually had water added back to it. Now, apple cider is a lot darker, and it's because it's made locally and doesn't have that process of water being added back to it. Okay, does that answer your question? I hope it does.
That's it. Nicely, yeah, nice explanation. I got a question here from Nora asking, what's your favorite kind of apple? Her class wants to know, what's your favorite kind and when does it come in season on your orchard?
Okay, I want to hedge my answer a little bit. I have 7 grandchildren, and I don't want to tell you who my favorite grandchild is, okay? But I think I can give you a hint on apples. So I like every apple we grow. But if somebody had to push me into a corner and say, okay, you could only plant one apple tree, what would it be? And I would plant Jonathan's. Now, and there's a reason for it. All the other apples are good, but Jonathan's seem to do fairly well in our climate, being a warmer summer. But Jonathan's have an extended harvest period. We can harvest them for almost 5 weeks. And they are a good cooking apple. I think they're the best pie apple myself personally, but they also are a good eating apple. And they actually make a pretty good apple cider. If we could, we'd put about 50% of our apples in our cider would come from Jonathan's. So I think that Jonathan's is my favorite apple from the grower point of view. But would I want to raise only one apple? No way. I like these other ones. I mentioned that video. That Gold Rush is an outstanding apple. It really is. And I wouldn't want to be without it too, though. And all the others.
Totally understand that. You hedged your bet well. So kind of hard to pick your favorite grandkid. I appreciate your answer there. How about robotics and picking apples? I'm thinking yours are all hand-picked, but are there technology aspects that you're using to change your apple in your apple operation?
Well, no, the actual harvest of the apples is done all by hand. I mean, a human is going to touch every apple that we have in our market or turn into cider or whatever. We have to, there have been, in some, I was almost 30 years ago, I was watching them develop what they call shakers for apple harvest. The problem was it was never able to perfect it without causing a lot of damage to the apples. If you were going to turn all these apples into, let's say, applesauce or cider, you probably could use some kind of mechanical harvesting, but we don't have that yet. Now, I was watching a video from Japan the other day, and they actually are developing some kind of robotic harvesters for things like greenhouse tomatoes and greenhouse cucumbers and stuff like that. It's interesting. There's still work being done on it, but it's got to be very difficult to perfect something like this because nature, the plant has to be, how you put it, agreeable to ripen all at the same time, and that don't work that way.
There you go. We've got a question here from Braden. He's a 5th grader, and he wants to know, how do you know when an apple's ripe? What's the easiest way for you to determine when an apple actually becomes ripe?
That's a good question, and that's something that we deal with every year in this case. Well, there's a couple of things we can do. One is that, obviously, read and all the technology or information out there and then find out when they should be ripening, but you have to adjust it to your own orchard. Now, I will take a sample apple and I will cut it open and I will look at the interior of it. If the seeds are brown, that means that this apple is developed maturity. Now, if the seed is not brown, if it's kind of a light color, yellowish type color, it may not be mature yet. Now, the next thing, of course, is that you can look at the texture of the apple on the inside, but the final grow in this case is the taste test. I mean, after I cut them up and I see those seeds are brown, I'll take a wedge and I'll take off and bite it. And I've done it the last several days. We picked an apple today called Empire for the first picking. And the reason I picked the day for it is because yesterday I did that final that test you just talked about. So we have to do that all fall. We just keep checking out the varieties and see how they ripen individually.
There you go. And there's no perfect solution to it. It all comes down to taste. Exactly.
It does. Absolutely is.
Well, very cool. Another really good question here. We saw on the video the great drone footage. Do you know about how many trees you have?
Yes, I do. And there's a couple of reasons why I do know it. One is because obviously we know what we planted originally, but every year we do a tree count. It's the craziest thing, but I mean, it literally got a count. Now, this past year, we had about 1,000 peach trees, and we have about 1,300 apple trees. Give or take a few here or there, but though we have more apple trees than we have peach trees. So we have over 2,000. When counting plums and cherries and stuff like we have close to about almost 2,500 fruit trees.
Very cool. So just the census, that's another thing that's in the news lately. We want to make sure we get an accurate count. You keep an accurate count of what's going on your farm. And speaking of your farm, we've got just a couple minutes left. You are open for business, and apple orchards across the state are open for business. If folks want to find you on Turkey Hill Lane there in Belleville, what would they expect if they show up at your farm? When they show up, what can they expect to do?
First of all, you will not see our farm from the highway. You're going to end off a state highway, and you're going to go through a tree-covered road, a tree-line road, I should say, and you're going to come up to the top of this hill we call Turkey Hill in this area, and then you're going to come on. First thing you're going to see is probably a pasture with my cattle, and then you're going to drive by the cattle to our sales shed, and you're going to see apple trees on the road coming up to the sales shed, and you're going to see behind it a whole orchard. I always jokingly tell people we have a mural painted on the back of our sales shed, but it's not really a painting. It's the actual orchard itself. You're going to see trees there on both sides, and we've got other things going on our farm too. We have the animals, and we have we raise a lot of vegetables, and we have our bakery too. By the way, I do encourage you to visit your local apple orchards. I know we do appreciate all the business we get from our local customers, and we have people come from quite far to visit us. And I know if you live in certain parts of the state, there are orchards in your area then too.
That's right. On our blog site, beyondthebarndoor.wordpress.com, we actually have a link so you can find the closest apple orchard to you. Tom, we really appreciate your time. We're running right up at 1:30. We promised folks we'd stop here right at 1:30. We do want to put a plug in for next week. Next week, we'll be featuring author Lisa Amstutz, and she wrote the book Applesauce Day. A brief synopsis of the book for you if you haven't borrowed it yet. A family visits an orchard. A family goes, visits the orchard, they pick their own apples on a you-pick farm, then they come back and at grandma's house, they actually all sit together and make applesauce. So we're going to talk next week with Lisa Amstutz. She's the author of the book Applesauce Day. So teachers, if you haven't borrowed that book from your ag literacy coordinator, make sure you do that. I sent a copy of the book down to Tom. Hopefully you shared it with your grandkids to share with them exactly what goes on. But folks, this is week 2. We were at the pollinators last week. This week we're at the Braeutigam Orchard down on Turkey Hill Lane in Belleville, Illinois. Tom, we really appreciate your time. We appreciate your efforts, and best of luck during this upcoming apple season. And to our teachers, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. We look forward to seeing you next week as we visit Lisa Amstutz, from the author of Applesauce Day. So thank you very much, Tom. We appreciate it. Everybody, all have a great day. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and shut it off here, folks. People are saying thank you and doing